Hi everyone, welcome to this video. We're going to discuss about exercises 1 to 4 of the chapter 20. This is the chapter of income, inequality and poverty. Remember, this is a book of Gregory Mankiw, Principles of Economics. So the first question says, Table 2 shows that income inequality in the United States has increased since 1970. So we have a look here. We are here in 1970, where the bottom fifth of the population, they have 5.5% of the total income. It increases the inequality due to this percentage of the top fifth. It has increased. So it means that people with salary higher than this interval, they are taking almost 50% of the total income in the economy. So then some factors contributing to this increase were discussed in chapter 19. What are they? So we need to recall this part of the chapter 19 that we discussed about what were the factors that imply these kind of changes. So then, first, we need to discuss about ability, effort, and chance, which was in the part 19.1c. So, important natural ability. We already know that even some people exert a lot of effort, and the other ones that maybe don't exert too much, but they have a natural gift, for saying it that way. So we know that those person, they likely will have higher salary. This is more related in the case of sports, where naturally even people try hard. If they don't have a valid ability inherent to them, they never will fulfill that. So definitely natural ability or ability in general can contribute to differences in salary. Obviously, effort can make differentiation among hard workers and lazy ones. We already know that people that they are hard workers, they tend more to have to be promoted instead of lazy workers that maybe they have the same capacity or the same potential capacity to the other ones, but unfortunately they don't have the same salary. Chance is, for example, the oil and gas industry. We already know that those industries, they have like really high risk associated. So then the industry moves with the price of those goods. So then once the price of those goods is really high, it tends to be better the conditions to the companies that they provide jobs. Other important is the variables that can be measured as, for example, years of schooling, year of experience, age of job characteristics. We already know that all of them just explain half of the variation of the salaries. So it means that those characteristics, they are not enough in order to explain 100% the change of salary among population. Then the other half naturally is provided by omitted variables. Those could be called as ability, effort, and chance. Other important fact that contribute to inequality is the superstar phenomenon in the last years. So we know that, for example, the comparison between James Rodriguez, which is from my country, proudly, and Sofia Vergara as well. We know that even inside the same professions, we know that there are differences with ability and effort. There are a lot of teenagers. I was one that I tried to become a professional soccer player. Unfortunately, due to ability, sometimes I would say effort, not too much. Maybe those are characteristics to say that are the difference for the final result. Other But it's interesting to wonder why, for example, carpenters or plumbers, they do not take those salaries. A plumber, a start, or something like that. This is basically because these two guys, they have something about something that is really interesting. That every customer wants to enjoy by the best producers, but it's possible to supply every consumer to a low cost. That's the trick. So the marginal cost of turning on one additional TV is almost zero. So then those two guys can be seen for people around the world with the minimum effort, which would make them get better salaries. Instead of a plumber, they just can attend one person, but no, 1, 2, 3, 4 million as those guys that they just turn on the programs where he's playing or where she's performing. So Sophia can supply to many people as she wants. Similar the case of James, carpenter just low supply. Another important fact about the equilibrium wages is minimum wage laws, unions, and efficiency wages. Those three characteristics can explain in some way those differences, some inequality among workers. So, for example, the wages, as we have seen, are determined by the law of supply and demand, so where they cross, right? But sometimes wages are set above the equilibrium because this is almost all countries they have the minimum equilibrium wage, and then the least skilled and experienced are affected by this law. Why? Because maybe some people they can even work for less salary, but due to law they cannot. So that's the main difference. And then we know that there are market power of labor unions that sometimes they have one tool, which is basically the power of a strike. And it is calculated that 10 to 20% they have more for union workers. So they have higher salary compared to the people that they don't belong to an union. So the other part is the efficiency wages. We know that higher salaries increase the productivity of the workers. It could reduce work turnover, and definitely it will increase worker effort and then raise quality of workers that apply. This is the situation of the wage in the y-axis as the price, labor as the quantity. Here we have the supply and the demand, and this is the minimum wage. Naturally, the labor demanded compared with the labor supplied is different. So this difference is what we call unemployment. Then, other important part regarding inequality is the discrimination. Sometimes those differences or those inequalities are represented by this term. For example, similar workers with difference in race, ethnic groups, age, or other person characteristics, they have different salaries. So then, this is an example provided by the U.S. Census Bureau that which brings the earnings data are to the year 2011 and apply to full-time, year-round workers age 14 and over. So definitely we see here a difference, right? Because then this should be obviously human capital as an incidence, but just in time but also quality. Why? Because sometimes, unfortunately, the white people they have access to better education compared with African American people. So then we have here that if you are white and you are a man, you on average you can earn $50,000 per year. But however, if you are women, you will get this one. So this is a discrimination by gender. When we have here and the American, I don't know why the book says black. I prefer African American people. They have 39,000, right? And compared with white, there is a difference in rates. And if you compare just black men, African American men and African American women, obviously there is and again a difference. So then this should be the differences from them. So then this could be the case. It's important to take into account that sometimes women they also usually they have attained a lower experience because sometimes they have 1-2 years off in order to grow up their kids. So then it could be an impact to have less experience compared with men. Then obviously another important discrimination to have in consideration is the discrimination by consumers and governments. So sometimes profit motive can be limited by customer preference and government policies. Then, for example, whether toll assured, if customer care profit motive cannot be enough. So sometimes customer they prefer to go to a really beautiful waiters compared with other ones that they are not beauty. They are not beautiful. It could be the case, for example, Hooters. They have like really attractive girls, so maybe it make you an impact in your decision on going to this restaurant or another one. Then other important is, for example, government can stop that and set a law just to allow waiters to be told. So then this could be other discrimination not provided by customers but provided by the government. When we have obviously a market complete free, when there is no difference and customers don't care, obviously this same market tries to eliminate such barriers. Because imagine that you hire blonde girls, so you just contract them or hire them, and all restaurants replicate the same behavior. At the end, the wage of these kind of workers will be higher. But if customers don't care, um, actually the actually the employers as well, so they will start to hire people with different characteristics. So then this one should be different. In the second point, we have like table 3 that shows that the percentage of children in families with income below the poverty line far exceeds the percentage of the elderly in such families. How might that allocation of government money across different social programs have contributed to this phenomenon? So here we have the table that we have already seen during the chapter, where we have these one children. They have um, like 21.9% lie on below the poverty rate, and here we have elderly that they have a different behavior because they have a really good one. They are just 8.7% that they belong to this group and they are below the poverty rate. Then why could be that? The first situation is the federal government. We know that the federal government they collect 2/3 of the total taxes. This is the table for the receipts of the federal government in 2011. Here we have 2.5 billions, which should be this one, and um, divided the millions, the population. So we have this one 8,077. So here is the taxes that the collection that we have: individual income taxes, social insurance taxes, corporate income taxes. Though Social Security as an income support program designed primarily to maintain the living standards of the elderly. So this one, Social Security, as this one, you provide in some part or you distribute to elderly people. When you redistribute money to them, this automatically provides they a better standard of living, higher income, and then they won't be part of the under the poverty line. Here we know that the income security, this is the other part, the spending of the government. So the income security, this part is part of the transfer payments. It does not receive anything as change for a good of service. For example, social security income for elderly and disabled or for unemployment. So then this part make elderly people have better situation. The other one, the third point says, this chapter discusses the importance of economic mobility. A. What policies might the government pursue to increase economic mobility within a generation and across generation? Definitely, this is kind of subtle, I must admit, and something like personal opinion. So I would say that this could be one of the important tools that not only they can provide economic mobility within a generation, but also across generation. We know that within a generation, this should be not like persistent. You suppose that maybe you have like bad years that you will be in a under the poverty line temporarily, and across generation this is something more structural, some kind of public policies that you provide better standard of living to people, but then they will have a better situation during more time. So then definitely the first one that I want to mention is access to education. If I can provide access to education to children, definitely that the previous generation they didn't have, so they belong to the poor people, then they will have the tools necessary to go up in this pyramid. And then the children of them likely they would like to study or they will study, so then you will get this economic mobility not only within but also across. Scholarships is basically the same as before. You can provide scholarship to the best performers or because of the sportive ability, so then you will guarantee those people economic mobility as well. Loans, so you can provide them actually loans as well to have better situation when they are because they need to make investments, make enterprises or whatever. So it could be the case. And subsidies, maybe this could guarantee more within a generation, but maybe if this is used in the good way, obviously you can guarantee the part of across generation. The C part says, do you think we should reduce spending on current welfare programs to increase spending on programs that enhance economic mobility? What are some of the advantages or disadvantages of doing so? So then I would like to say something about advantages. You can provide more possibility to people that they didn't have before. So they didn't have before a possibility of studying, the possibility of getting better education. So then this should be definitely a case. Obviously, the disadvantage is like this: the welfare of people in need, like elderly people or disabled people, they will lose these characteristics or these programs, these like kind of help that they had before. So definitely this should be a problem. The fourth and the last one of this video, it says, consider two communities. In one community, 10 families have incomes of 100,000 each, and 10 families have incomes of 20,000 each. So this should be the case. 10 family, 100,000, 10 families, 20,000. This is the first community. In the other community, 10 families have incomes of 2,000 and each, and 10 families have income of 22,000. Right? Then here we have the same that I already mentioned, and that it says, in which community is the distribution of income more unequal? In which community is the problem of poverty likely to be worse? Then the first one, we have this 100,000 over 20,000. The ratio is 5, which means the higher is like more unequal. Here we have 9.09. Definitely this second community, they are more equal. But in which community the problem of poverty likely to be worse? The situation is worse here. because the 10 families with the lowest salary is 20,000 compared with these 22. Which distribution of income would Rawls prefer? Explain. Remember, Rawls tried to say that uh, improve the situation of the worst off. So then this should be the second community, right? Because this one has a better or higher income than these people. That should be the case. Which distribution of income do you prefer? Explain. Obviously, this is subtle, but I would say that I prefer second community because in total we are talking that we have here more than $2 million. Here we just have just a little bit more than $1 million. So then I can make some redistribution here where I can provide this money to them without intervening too much in the economy. And then why might some have the opposite preference? Obviously, the opposite should be someone who can say that don't make any intervention in the economy, don't make any movement, and obviously this person would say that it's better to be here, but this person because it's more equal inside the people. That's all. See you in the next video. Bye bye.